one will be called switch. When I say switch, it means that the first person, so me, and the last person, so let go. The last person will switch spots. So that's a switch. Does that make sense? So 1 and 4 will switch. Now, if I say change, it means that 1 and 3 will switch spots. Okay, does that make sense so far? And then when I say rotate, we all turn around, and now I'm the leader again. Okay? Now it seems easy, but bobsleds move. And so we'll be walking while we play the game. So that's why we got to be careful with space. So, Alice, how about you walk forward a little bit? And I say switch. And we keep walking. Oh, so hands on shoulders. Okay. And then let's say I say change. Keep going. And then rotate. Where you going? And then you keep walking forward. And you switch directions, okay? So that is the first part of the game. So let's divide up into teams of 4. Everyone find who to pair up with. Doesn't matter, whoever, okay? And then you can use the space up here too. Use all the space that you can. And then for the older kids, if you see any younger people without a team, go pair up with somebody else. Wait, pause, don't move it. You're gonna find you guys a team. You're teamless. Okay, does everyone know what the... Hey. Does everyone know how to play? Does it make sense? Okay. So you're going to be quiet, otherwise you can't hear the words that I'm going to say. It's going to go a little bit quick. Alright, so there's no stopping. Bob says don't stop in the middle of the race. Okay? So you can start walking, just don't hit each other. Alright, make sure you use all the space in the room. So you can go up here and spread out a little bit. Alright, switch! Alright, keep moving! Switches 1 and 4. Alright, switch. Change. Rotate. Alright, switch. Change. Rotate. Alright, pause. Alright, everybody stop moving. Alright, does everyone stand? Okay, we're gonna add one more, because it's not hard enough yet. Alright, so sometimes when people are bobsledding, the ice can be kind of rough. So now, when I say rough ice, everyone in your team is going to disband, and you're going to find 3 new people to make a team. And then you form a team, and you keep going. Okay? So just be mindful of each other. Alright, and I'm not going to go in order. It's not going to be switch, shape, rotate every single time. It's a little bit different. Alright, so you can start walking. Yeah, you can find. Alright, switch. Rotate. Rough ice. going to start to go talk. Okay. And I think that we can grab our cushions, grab your mats, and find a comfortable position. I'm glad everyone enjoyed that game. You stole my seat. Okay, everyone seated, everyone comfortable. Also, thank you for playing my game. I see you guys had a lot of fun. So, unfortunately, I put together a couple of things. I didn't have enough time to know it in the way that I typically would, so I had to write down some notes. And so, forgive me for having some paper that I have to kind of refer to. But here is the talk for today. So this is my outline as always. We're going to do a quick summary of what we talked about yesterday. I'm going to talk about what we call the 3 crises that's going on right now, my solution, and then we're going to talk about something we call community levers at the very end, which is really the most important takeaway of my talks, and so essentially the campaign. So just to preface, I see some new faces that we didn't have yesterday. And so I think just because I'm getting older, the topic of what I like to talk about is a little bit deeper or a little bit more abstract than when I was growing up. And so it's hard to follow, even for some of our parents. Then be patient, and hopefully it'll kind of come slowly. And I'm trying my best to kind of explain and to really break it down. But today in particular may be a little bit difficult. And so just kind of prepare yourself mentally to kind of lock in and focus. And I'll do my best to be our Sherpa on this adventure. So let's just do a little quick recap. And the reason why I wrote down some things is because I don't want to improvise, I don't want to say something that's too confusing. And so here is our summary. If you guys remember from yesterday, on the very first mountain that we're at, we had to perform certain life tasks. We establish an identity, we cultivate our talents, we build an ego, a very secure ego of ourselves. And so oftentimes when we're climbing this first mountain, we are spending a lot of time building our reputation, so what people think about us. And essentially we're building a very big me. Me. And so our society has done quite an excellent job of promoting this kind of culture. A culture of success, a nice and a very big home, nice vacations, good food, a lot of friends. And that is kind of how you make progress in our society. And so now we are arriving at the second mountain, right? We went through this first mountain, the valley we'll talk about in a bit, the second mountain today. So something happens between the first mountain and the second mountain. Some of us get to the top of the first mountain. We taste some of that success. If you get all A's, maybe do really well in some of your sporting competitions. But over time, we find that success to be unfulfilling. And we kind of ask ourselves, is that all that there is? We sense that there must be a deeper journey to take. And so for the valley, for some people, we deal with a tragedy, maybe a death of a child, a cancer scare, addiction. some tragedy that was not part of the original plan, something that we called a black swan yesterday. So whatever the cause, we are no longer on the mountain, and we're now in the valley. And this can happen at any age. It's not too early or too late. It can happen anytime. And so these seasons of suffering, as we said, have a way of exposing the deepest parts of ourselves, things that we never knew. And so the coolest part is that people who go through the valley, the really tough parts of life, end up rebelling against the first mountain. We rebel against the idea of a very strong ego. And we learn that through those tragedies, there are certain things that are more important than fame and success. We begin to elevate our desires. And that is a very interesting thing, because the world tells us something totally opposite. The world tells us to be a very good consumer, to buy things. But actually, most of us want to be consumed by a moral cause. The world tells us that we want independence, but in actuality, all of us want interdependence, where we can be part of a web of very warm relationships. So here is an experiment that I'll share with all of you. And this is what we call the daycare experiment. So once there was daycare, and basically people would leave their kids there for the day, they would work, and they would come back late to pick up their children. And just like when you guys go to school and your mom and dad are late, and you're kind of embarrassed because you go to the office and you wait for them, and you're like that kid, and everyone knows your name because you're always the one that's staying late. That's what happened. And so obviously someone has to stay with you, right? A teacher or some kind of administrative person stay with you. And so a couple people did an experiment on this, and they looked at whether or not if they charged a fine, they penalized parents for leaving their kids too late. And they charged a $5 fine, and so people would come and pick up their kids late, and they would have to pay. And so the purpose was that they wanted to see if they charged, then maybe parents would come sooner. Like they wouldn't be so late. But surprisingly, the researchers found that the parents, the rate of people coming late actually increased, doubled. It was pretty interesting. And then they realized that the reason this is that now you put a monetary value that parents are willing to pay to have someone else take care of their children, and they don't feel as guilty for leaving someone with their kid. Does that make sense so far? And so this experiment kind of tells us that there is a moral cause, something deeper than just financial or money reasons, for why we choose to do good things, why we should pick up our children early or on time. Okay, so it's not about the money. People are willing to pay to not feel guilty about picking up their kids late. So that is kind of the origin for the second mountain. Now, the second mountain is not the opposite of the first mountain. It's the journey after. And we can tell whether we are on the first or the second mountain by simply asking ourselves, what do you place above all else? You or something outside of yourself? If the first mountain is about building up the ego and our own frame, the second mountain is about shedding the ego and to disregard the faith. If the first mountain is about gaining, the second mountain is about giving. If the first mountain is about ambition and moving up, the second mountain is about planting yourself close to those who need you and walking with them through life's difficulties. You don't climb the second mountain the way that you climb the first mountain. When you see the first mountain, you climb it and you conquer it. Instead, we are conquered by the second mountain. You surrender to a calling, and you address the problem or injustice that's in front of you. And so here you can see that on the last one, or 2 slides ago, I wrote that the second mountain is about a moral life. That's pretty funny. A moral life is quite fun. Because anyone here, like our parents, who have learned a moral lesson or two, will know that things of morality don't come in order. Sometimes you have to give to receive. You have to surrender something outside of yourself to gain strength within yourself. You have to conquer your desire to get what you crave. And success can lead to the greatest failure, which is arrogance and pride. But at the same time, failure can lead to the greatest success of humility and learning. In order to fulfill yourself, you have to forget yourself and put others first. In order to find yourself, you have to lose yourself in something you truly love doing. Pretty deep stuff. So that is a summary of why we're talking about this today. Okay, we've already talked about the first mountain, how we can achieve and be successful. Talked about the valley, the difficult parts of life. And if you haven't experienced that yet, then you're very lucky, but it will inevitably come. And so next we're going to talk about the 3 crises. These 3 crises, in my opinion, are the things that are stopping us from very easily achieving that second mountain. And here they are, for the first one. The first one is what I call the loneliness crisis. And this is probably more of a new generational issue rather than our parents. But basically, people today, young people, have never been more lonely than ever before. So here's some statistics. Over 60% of adults in the United States report feeling lonely. Young adults between the ages of 18 and 22, which are a couple of us who are kind of early college and graduate college, are the loneliest age group. And about 20% of Americans say they have nobody to talk about important matters. And that's pretty sad. That's the first one. And to really emphasize how loneliness is quite a big problem in America now, there's a new trend in medicine that's called social prescribing. So when you go to your doctor, they should talk to you about how they can connect you with people who can make you feel better on a more emotional and spiritual level. And so this is the World Health Organization. They have a whole toolkit that providers can kind of use to implement in their practice. And then even for myself, I just started school, and we have a program that I was accepted to. Actually, I don't think I told my parents about this yet. But a program in which we talk about social prescribing as something that can help people feel better with their overall healthcare. And it's such a big issue that people who are lecturing in this class include the U.S. Surgeon General and a couple other people that are very high up in our government. It's a very big topic for us Americans. So loneliness is a very hard obstacle to overcome when we are trying to achieve that moral life. Some of the other crises include the meaning crisis and the tribalism crisis. The meaning crisis is based off of the idea that now, more than before, a lot of us have lost faith. Like maybe a lot of us, not here, but many of our peers are less religious than in previous decades. A lot of people don't believe in building a family. A lot of people don't have faith in their institutions. And so people have lost faith or meaning in things that we used to have meaning. The tribalism crisis, a very good example would be politics. Now, I'm not going to divulge what I think, but typically these days it's so polarized that people on opposite sides really hate each other. And so they're together not because that they agree on the same thing, but they agree that they hate the same person. Okay? And that is a tribalism crisis. So these are really 3 big problems that we'll deal with in our generation. And so now the question is, are these obstacles excuses or valid reasons or good reasons why we cannot achieve that second mountain of a moral life? And my answer is no. So here is going to be our next activity. I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes. But I'm going to explain for our young people first. So everyone's going to close their eyes and think back to a moment that made you very, very happy. Maybe you're at the beach this summer with friends and family, and that made you really happy. Maybe you had a very fun time at school, and you can visualize, maybe in school, seeing people around you laughing, seeing them enjoy what's going on, the friendship. So think about that for a little bit. And for our adults, our parents in the back, close your eyes and think about those times when you come home from work and you see your family completely harmonious. No one's arguing, no one's upset. It seems like the perfect picture painted in your home. A picture you would want to have every single day. Now truly feel that picture and remember it. Now open your eyes. There's a part of our soul, our identity, our personhood, that yearns, that really wants unconditional love. And that feeling of peace that we just experienced. And now early on, when we're younger people, maybe we don't feel that as much. Maybe it's just like a very temporary thing that we see people at home and our friends are having fun. But for our parents, I know whoever thought of that picture at home, there's a very distinct feeling that they will never forget. And so in the course of our life, a leopard in the mountains that we've been climbing will make little appearances at certain stages. It'll show up during periods of extreme gratitude, when you see your family laughing and loving each other in harmony. And it will also show up when we're in the valley asking us what is next after our tragedy has already happened. And so you might catch a glimpse of this leopard trailing you through the trees. And now one day, we don't know what day it is, but the leopard will come down from the mountain, sit in your doorway, your home, and demand some kind of justification by asking you, why were you sent here? And what have you done for others? The leopard will ask you, what have you done for others? So either we have an answer, I help this person, I have this thing going on, or we spend the rest of our time thinking about what we could have done. Anyone following so far? And so here is a solution in which we will answer that leopard. And the solution to all of these crises, to all of our issues, is to make commitments. And the question is, what is a commitment? And I wrote up here that a commitment is almost like a promise, but with some extra responsibility and accountability. Essentially, it's the commitments that we make throughout our lifetime, whether that be me up here, I'm committing to give you a talk, I'm committing to share something with you, or you are here committing your time and your energy to enjoy a camp. All sorts of commitments in life. But our commitments give us our identity, and they are how we introduce ourselves to strangers, things that are most important to us. And our commitments ultimately give us a sense of purpose. And so what are the types of commitments that we can make? Very easy to understand. These are things that are closest to us, that we do in our daily life. We have a commitment with our family. Obviously, parents are committed to doing things for you, to making sure you're safe, you're taken care of. And likewise, we have a commitment to not be too bad of children, to be kind of decent and to not bring too much stress at home. For most of us here, we don't work yet, but for our parents, they're committed to a job. They have to show up on time, they do the responsibilities and complete the tasks, otherwise they're not fulfilling their commitment. People commit to a faith, a religion, or a belief system. And then, of course, we can always commit to a community. And this is our community here. A family, a second family, CSS. So to break it down even more, to give you even more concrete examples, and I know that my mom and dad don't like being complimented or decaying in public, but this is an example of their commitment to our family. This is my family, and they never failed to show up to our piano recitals, no matter how busy they were. They show up to all of my competitions and school events. And so that's their commitment to our family. My dad, going to work before, no matter how much they want to leave me behind on this little guy right here. Oh, you didn't see that, huh? This little guy's like blending good. Yeah, that's me. When he's committed to his job for the time to make sure that there's food on the table and clothes on our back. I don't know what I'm doing. We're also committed to faith. So you want to go back? So my family is also committed to faith. So even though my mom is Buddhist, my dad is basically Buddhist at this point. But we start off as being Catholic, and every Christmas we still go to church, we still reflect and observe and celebrate the Christian holidays. And then lastly, we have a commitment to our community here. And so I think, is Alvin here? I don't know if he's here, but he was one of the few people that were at one of our first CSS youth classes. This is my dad, wearing his own same shirt, same pants as he always wears, never deviates. My mom is here, always supporting my dad. And this is our very small youth group at the time. This is Alvin, right here. And this is Kenneth, if anyone knows Kenneth, this is Kenneth. And so even back then, before we had anything going on, before we had any camps, before we had any kind of real structure, my parents were already committed to this group, to all of you. And just for another one, this is Alvin. He's so chill. So it's funny, because by making commitments, we immediately become more selfless, more giving. Making commitments is opposite of how we conduct our normal lives. It's kind of the theme you've noticed. Everything's kind of opposite. For example, when you buy a new car or when you buy food, you ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it the best for me? And these questions of self-interest are actually the worst type of questions we can ask when making commitments like these. Imagine someone who goes into a marriage asking, what's in it for me? It may not be the best marriage to them. Those who adopt a moral perspective do not ask, what do I want out of life? Instead, they ask, what is life asking of me? And so just like the crises and just like all these things, there are always obstacles along the way. And for us, there are very clear obstacles. Of course, we want to make a commitment, but sometimes the place we live in, making a commitment can be very hard. And so here are the top 3 reasons why I think commitments can be hard. Because just by acknowledging them, we can get over them. So number 1, we all have internet and social media, and we've been trained to really only pay attention for at most 30 seconds to a minute, and then we move on to the next thing. And commitments are long-term, so those 2 things are not going to go well together. Number 2 is when we go to school. We'll make friends. More so in middle school, high school, and college, that we have friends and they go out and they do all sorts of things, they're having fun, and you feel a sense of FOMO. It's a fear of missing out. You feel like you have to go with them, otherwise you're going to miss out on the experience they're having together, and you wouldn't even know what to talk about anymore. And so when you go, you lose out on another commitment. Maybe you had a commitment at home, with family, with your parents. And then lastly, we have a generalized fear that when we commit to one thing, you're going to lose the opportunity to do other things. And that is something very hard for all of us to get over. So the key to beginning to set our commitments in a way that is so strong, The key is to focus on expressing our love. Love for our family, love for our job, even if it's a job you don't like, love for community, and love for your faith. So I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes again. I'm going to read you a quote, a little section of a book. And I would like you to let your creative mind kind of go wild and really imagine the things that I'll be saying. So here is the quote. Being in love is a temporary madness. It erupts like volcanoes and then subsides. And when it subsides, you have to make a decision. Because being in love is just excitement. Love itself is what is left over when being in love has burned away. Those that truly love have roots that grow towards each other underground. And when all the pretty blossoms have fallen from their branches, they find that they are one tree and not two. You can open your eyes. And so here we're not talking about like romantic love, but we're talking about love for those kinds of values and commitments that we have. The love we have for family, for our job, our community, and our faith. Over time, it's not just that you just love that thing and just two different identities together, separately that come together. You're actually conjoined at the root of all these commitments. So far, this has been very abstract, very hard to understand, I would think. And so I will talk to you about what community weavers are, because these community weavers live the belief system of making commitments and solving problems. And so this is what we should strive to be. And so this relates to the game that we just played, because as you can see in our bobsledding game, at a moment's notice, you may be the last in your line, being a follower, to now you're the leader. You may think you're safe in the back in the third spot, but all of a sudden you have to change to the first spot. And the same thing goes when you have to rotate. And of course, opportunities in life come and things can get rough, and we have to disband, and we have to find a new group. Rock and roll, and keep going and chugging along. No time to stop. And so that is what it means to be a community weaver. No matter where you go, no matter where you are, no matter what position you're in line, you are there to make a difference and to lead people along a certain path. So here are some examples. In Madison, Wisconsin, there is a story that goes that a neighborhood community near a local elementary school, has a very high percentage of immigrants. So many of them are working full-time, and these parents are very busy. And this school noticed that there is a relatively high rate of absences or tardies for the students. And the principal and the teachers kind of do some investigation, and they realize that a lot of these people in these immigrant communities, they're just so busy, and they don't have time to take their kids to work, or maybe they take their kids to work, they take their kids to school late. And so that is kind of a problem for the kids learning. So the teacher thought, okay, well, this is the case, and we should try our best to help. And obviously, getting a whole new bus and driving all of these different bus routes is a little bit expensive. And so she came up with a community-based solution in which volunteers from the faculty would make a walking school bus, walk to the community, and bring those kids to school by walking. This is a pretty short walk, maybe 10, 15 minutes. But you can't go alone if you're like a kid. And they realized that statistically, since early 2000s, a lot of us are walking to school much less because parents are afraid of safety, are afraid of things that are they're just not the same as they used to be. And over time, some of the parents would begin to volunteer, and they would take turns walking other people's kids to school. And the result was that they saw only a 3% decrease absences, but to them, that is already a big improvement. So a big, big solution. And so they said to start off with maybe 12 kids, and then now they've grown to maybe 50 or 70 kids. Multiple routes. This is just one route. And you don't need to think this is very far, because actually, the same idea was replicated at UVA, around the University of Virginia, right here. And we have a volunteering organization called Madison House, and they basically have a bunch of students in the university participate in volunteering in different things. And one of those sub-chapters is volunteering for almost like a walking bus, but in this case, they walk only maybe 3 or 4 kids. Each volunteer can take a little community. And so they walk kids around Charlottesville to their elementary school. So that is one example of community weaving. They're bringing people together to solve a problem. One more example. Who knows what this is? Anybody know? We have one in Mosaic. My favorite grocery store. But I cannot afford it yet. But it's my favorite. So this is a mom's store. And here is how the story goes. This is a mom's in Maryland. I think it's a couple. But I think this is the one in Frederick, Maryland. And there was an employee there named Anthony. I believe his name is Anthony. And he realized, and he worked through the kind of the pandemic time, that during work, him and his fellow employees were so busy, they didn't get to talk to each other, they had no time to really bond and to understand, they're always rushing around finding things to restock and to help customers. So he said, that kind of stinks, and I want to find a solution to this problem. So he requested that when possible, maybe in periods of break or before people come to the store before they open up, or even after they close, that the people in his team take time to talk to each other. And he has a very funny game in which he passes a lemon around to people, and whoever's won the lemon would tell the group what is going on at home and what's bringing them stress and anxiety in their life. And then during periods of the day in which there are not that many customers, they will actually play records or tapes of breathing exercises over the intercom to help people in their store calm down, their employees. It's a bonding thing. Now, what started out as a very small little attempt to bring his team together has turned into a very big project. So now he is the executive director and founder of a group called Evolving Minds. And they go around to different campuses, organizations, and they do talks and presentations and exercises, conferences, to teach meditation, almost like we do here, but not Buddhist. And they talk about what it means to be mindful, to be in the moment, and to work in a team. So he is also a community weaver. He's brought his community together, and he's expanded the solution out to other people to help more people than just in that mom's grocery store. So here's a summary of the talks, the last today and the 2 yesterday, that I hope all of us can take away. To grow with purpose means that we want to improve with direction. And to improve with direction, that means we want to become better with an identity or the person that we are. And so we should be striving for academic and career success. We should be trying to be the best that we can be in those domains of our life. But at the same time, we should recognize there's more to life than just money and those kinds of successes. There's a moral life that we want to tap into. And we get there by being anti-fragile. We get there by embracing randomness and chaos in our life, to be okay with things that are not that okay, and to get through the very difficult moments in that valley of suffering. And lastly, the main takeaway is that we all have to make a commitment. You can choose to make a commitment to family, or to your job, to your faith, or to a community like ours here. But by making a commitment, you become a weaver. And when you become a weaver, then life seems to go so much better for you, because you're giving. And that is how we make a long-lasting impact. And that is how you can grow with purpose. Thank you. All right, does anyone have any questions? Is anyone too confused? Okay. Well, I hope all of us can reflect on the commitment you want to make, and you can start this very soon. Okay. I'll head off to our staff, and they can explain the next.
Thank you, Peggy, for your presentation. Next, I believe we have this last Dharma presentation from Long Yi. We can take a quick break in between, like 5 minutes, so that he can get settled in. So go ahead and get water, use the bathroom.
Before you guys go, we have a whole bunch of plastic plates, and on each of the plates in the hall are 4 of the lotuses in a Ziploc bag. So when you guys go out to go to your bathroom break, wash your hands and everything, grab one of those plates with your 4 lotuses and bring it back in here. Don't take it with them yet, just have it at your spot, okay? And then try to make the spots like straighten out again for us to sit together, okay? Wow.